Welcome to the Rise of Cryptocurrencies show at Wealth Research Group. Today I welcome Roger Ver, one of the most bullish investors on Bitcoin and its financial potential, as well as social positives and technological advancements and advantages. He has been nicknamed Bitcoin Jesus, probably because of his crusade to get the Bitcoin message out there, and he's a long-time proponent of voluntarism, which is the idea that all human interactions should be by mutual consent or not at all. He then went to create BitcoinStore.com, the first website in the world to accept Bitcoin as payments for hundreds of thousands of items. And his website currently is RogerVer.com. Roger, how are you today?
Great. Although I guess my current website is actually Bitcoin.com. That's what's taking up all of my time at the moment. So.
Look, I want to ask you this. This is a very personal question, though. What to me strikes as both a miracle and a blessing in your case is that you found your calling with Bitcoin. Preparing for this interview, I learned that you spent jail time disproportionate to your crime because the cops hated your world philosophy, basically, which went right over their heads, I guess. It looks to me like Bitcoin came in a time in your life where you really were searching for a way to get your message and your philosophy across. Would you agree this couldn't have been more timely?
Well, so I did my time in prison in 2002, so it's been a while. But after I got out of prison, I kept my mouth completely shut in regards to politics. I didn't say anything at all about any of that sort of thing until Bitcoin came along, and I saw Bitcoin as this, amazing tool that we have to move the entire world in a direction in which individuals have way more control over their own lives and their own finances. And so I couldn't help but become as vocal as I possibly could at that point to tell the entire world about this wonderful invention we have in the form of cryptocurrencies that, free every single human being on the planet from arbitrary financial control of people that they've never met and know nothing about their lives. So I couldn't help but be excited about that and start speaking up again. So here we are.
Cool, man. I want to ask you some stats that might be known to some of our listeners, but I bet some of them are not known to many others about Bitcoin, because we have a mixed audience of people that have invested or are invested with cryptocurrencies, and people who are listening and are looking to perhaps take their first purchases of cryptocurrencies. So these are like short questions, and these are very short answers. So what date was the first Bitcoins released?
I believe it was January 3rd, 2009 was the very first block on the Bitcoin blockchain.
How many are there today that are floating that people can exchange and trade?
I think at the moment there's somewhere in the ballpark of 17 million, and that's increasing at the rate of 12 and a half additional Bitcoins being released onto the network on average every 10 minutes. And that will top out more than 100 years in the future at just under 21 million Bitcoins total.
Cool. And would you, I know there's a lot of them that have been, that are hoarded in a way that no one can ever access them again because somebody lost their wallet or the computer or whatever. Do you think that this is a large proportion of the float, or is this negligible?
I think there's probably a significant percentage of people that have lost track of their Bitcoins, because in the early days they weren't worth anything. And if something's not worth anything, you're not going to take a whole lot of care keeping track of it. And it wasn't until, several years in that they really started to have a value that was enough for people to really pay attention to. And today at, over $4,000 a Bitcoin, you better believe people are keeping a close eye on the Bitcoins that they have currently.
That's true. With regards to like the electricity and the power generated by all of the mining involved with just Bitcoin, not all the other cryptocurrencies, can you compare kind of what the electricity and the voltage and everything that has to do with that in terms that people can understand, like in terms of major cities and how much electricity they put out? Do you have any notion of the caliber of this?
Yeah, well, you're catching me a little bit off guard with asking for exact statistics, but it's at least in terms of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of megawatts at this point worldwide, and probably even several gigawatts. Maybe I'd have to do some Googling to see what the exact electricity consumption is, but that's an absolutely, staggering amount of electricity that's being used to secure this, worldwide financial network called Bitcoin.
President Trump, in one of his biographies, he wrote that the time that he started going bankrupt was the same time that he stopped asking the question, what's the worst case scenario for my investments? And I want to ask you the same thing. What's the most dangerous and realistic catalyst for Bitcoin to become less relevant and less popular and basically go into a sort of a bear market?
So the absolutely catastrophic scenario is that something breaks fundamentally with the actual protocol of Bitcoin itself, and the whole thing could go to zero overnight. Bitcoin's been around for quite a while now, so that seems pretty unlikely. A more realistic possibility is that some other competitor to Bitcoin gains more and more market share and displaces Bitcoin as the leading cryptocurrency with the biggest network effect. And that is definitely within the realm of possibility.
Fiat currencies derive their value from the fact that taxes and other obligations must be paid with them. So you must hold or possess some of them. Bitcoin is open to fierce competition, like you said. Which currencies or which cryptocurrencies, or whether the elements that the competition is focusing on in order to gain more market share, is it faster transactions, is it lesser fees, more private? What are people or entrepreneurs looking at when trying to surpass this Bitcoin dominance?
It's all of those things, although for me, the one that's the most interesting and the most pressing at the moment, I think, is actually the fungibility aspect. Bitcoin is not nearly as fungible as we would like it to be, and for something to be money, it has to be fungible. And everybody agrees that fungibility is a good thing, but if you stop and think about it for a minute, fungibility is just another word for privacy. So I'm really bullish on a number of the competitors to Bitcoin that have additional privacy baked right into the protocol.
Understood. Now, how can someone download the Bitcoin blockchain? I mean, to take a look at everything that has ever happened to it.
Well, to be clear, to use Bitcoin, you don't have to download the entire Bitcoin blockchain. You can download whatever wallet you want, and lots and lots. In fact, most wallets today don't have a copy of the entire Bitcoin blockchain. But over at Bitcoin.com, we list all the wallets that do have a copy of the entire blockchain and all the ones that don't. And then there's another thing called a block explorer, which is just a website. The most popular one in the world is blockchain.info. And you can use that website to explore the entire history of the blockchain and see every transaction that's ever happened and all sorts of things that are going on there.
Roger, do you think governments will issue their own cryptocurrencies?
Yeah, we're already seeing rumblings that they're working on that sort of thing and looking into it. And if you think about it, even the U.S. dollar today, for the most part, is a digital currency. Most of the dollar transactions you do aren't with pieces of paper in your wallet. Almost all of those are digital with your online banking or your credit card or that sort of thing. And it's just a question of time until more and more of these things are put onto a distributed ledger like the Bitcoin blockchain.
That corporations, like large established corporations like McDonald's or Walmart, or corporations that have value to offer to the public, will issue their own currencies as a way for people to stay more engaged with these companies, or create this sort of a loyalty?
They've already been doing that for a long, long time in the form of customer loyalty points or airline reward points or these sorts of things. So I'm sure we're going to see them start putting those on blockchains as well, because suddenly you have a system where you have zero downtime ever. People love that, of course.
What are all the options right now for an individual who wants to profit from everything that's going on, from blockchain tech to cryptocurrencies and ICO? How can people get involved, either as an investor, or what are the other options that somebody would have? What are the skill sets that you would need in order to take advantage of everything that's going on?
The best way or easiest way is probably just buy a basket of cryptocurrencies, or pick a couple of ICOs as well, and don't put all your eggs in one basket, but buy some of these cryptocurrencies and hold them and be along for this really, really exciting, world-changing ride that we're seeing right before our eyes happen. Another fun way too is if you're do some freelance work and mention that you accept cryptocurrencies for payment, and you'd be surprised just how big the economy is out there of people that are are willing to pay and be paid in cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin.
Do you think most people are ready for decentralized currencies as a whole? I mean, it's a huge responsibility from the aspect of there's no recourse. If you lose them, there's no customer service. You can't call anybody. In terms of theft, I bet that has to be incredibly stressful to see that all of your coins are gone. In terms of hacks or scams, there's been a lot of scams in ICOs. In terms of volatility and just an overall philosophy, it's a huge leap for most people to go into a world where it's open source and decentralized. Do you think most people rather have the comfort of knowing that they have some sort of an institution behind them if anything happens?
There's going to be a learning curve there where people are going to have to learn to deal with all of those issues. But of course, they're going to learn to deal with all of them. And if you think back in 1997, very, very few people were using the internet. And, today, just 20 years later, can you even imagine life without the internet? The internet is part of, just about everybody's life every day in just huge, huge meaningful ways. And the same is going to be with cryptocurrencies.
It's like opening a map instead of using a GPS to be without internet or with internet. It's a no-brainer right now. But do you think that is the same process of adoption that we'll see with cryptocurrencies?
Yes, I do. But I think it's going to happen even faster with cryptocurrencies because cryptocurrencies are money. Think about how many times you use money today. It's 1/2 of every single transaction you do and every single transaction in your life. It's going to spread like crazy. And it already is. Look at how far it's come in such a short period of time.
What are some of the most obvious and important uses for the blockchain platform itself that they can be implemented in industries and improve them? I know that some people are very much, that I've spoken with, say that the blockchain is not relevant for some industries, but for some industries it's essential and can really improve it. Do you have any opinions as to which industries could really benefit from putting a lot of the industry on a decentralized database like blockchain?
Well, I think central banking, for that matter. So we're going to decentralize central banking, and everybody can be in charge of their own money and be their own bank. For me, that's the most exciting aspect of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies is the use as money. But in addition to that, another great example would be like land title registries. Why do you need somebody down at City Hall with a bunch of dusty old stacks of files and whatnot, keeping track of who owns what piece of land and what the deal is with the title? Where we can put all that on a blockchain and it's all right there for anybody to verify, and you won't need title insurance anymore or anything like that. So that's just one of many, many examples.
Did you say that? Because I just spoke to a friend of mine the other day who said that in Egypt, 70% of land titles are disputable. So it's a huge country and obviously a huge problem which blockchain could really help to solve. Could you explain what is the process of mining? In other words, what is the cryptographic mathematical problem called the hash that Bitcoin is designed upon, and how does this work, in layman terms?
So basically, you have a math problem, but the only way to find the solution to that math problem is to just plain guess. And so all these Bitcoin mining machines around the world are guessing the solution to these problems as fast as they possibly can. And when one of these computers finally finds the solution to that math problem, they're able to bundle all the Bitcoin transactions that happened since the last solution and bundle them into a new block and attach it to the end of the blockchain. And so then there's another block on the blockchain, and it's a block longer, and that chain's been going out for, 9 years or something like that. And it's right there for everybody to verify and view and check. And the computer that finds the correct math problem to add that block to the blockchain is rewarded with 12.5 additional Bitcoins, which at the moment is like $50,000 worth of value. So people are willing to spend an awful lot of money to do this Bitcoin mining because they want that $50,000 per math problem that they can solve 12.5 Bitcoins.
Is the math problem one that you need to guess? What is that math problem exactly?
So basically, they're just trying to make a hash, and it has to have a bunch of zeros at the beginning of the hash. And a hash is basically where you take whatever input you want, and then you can have a fixed number output by doing some mathematical formula there. And basically, it's called proof of work, and that's the first and only way at the moment that seems to be a way for having a distributed consensus where you don't have some central institution deciding what the state of the ledger is. Everybody participates and nobody's in charge.
If you had a veto and a final call on how to improve Bitcoin today, what would be your plan of attack?
We need to make Bitcoin the absolute best form of money we possibly can. And in order for that to be the case, the fees need to be low, the confirmations have to be near instant, and it has to be more fungible. So we need to increase the privacy, lower the fees, and increase the speed of feeling that you're safe to accept a Bitcoin transaction. So the technical term, I guess, is called making zero confirmation transactions as safe as we possibly can. And unfortunately, some people disagree with me on all three of those fronts.
How would you do that?
The easiest way at the moment, I think, is to just increase the block size of Bitcoin. So that provides additional privacy. It makes it so transactions are reliable and confirm in the next block every time. And that was the plan for from day one with Bitcoin. And unfortunately, a bunch of people that came to Bitcoin much later don't want zero confirmation transactions to be safe. They want to limit the amount of block size, which decreases the amount of privacy that people have, and basically undermines Bitcoin's usefulness as money. And that's why we've seen just an explosion in competitors to Bitcoin at this point, because Bitcoin's not as useful as it used to be on those fronts, but it still definitely has the biggest network effect with the most users and the most merchants and the most businesses behind it. So, but just like Friendster and MySpace, I'm sure the CEOs of both of those companies thought that there's no way anybody could ever displace them. And now, everybody talks about, look at MySpace compared to Facebook, and it's not guaranteed Facebook will be around for forever. It might get supplanted as well at some point, and the same is definitely possible of Bitcoin.
Why? What are the claims that what are the arguments that they propose for against yours?
So their argument in regards to zero confirmation safety is that zero confirmations are never as safe as transactions that have been confirmed. And so we shouldn't try to make them safe at all, is their argument on that front. In regards to the actual block size, is they are worried that people won't be able to run a full node and have an entire copy of the Bitcoin blockchain on their own computer or their own device. But that's not a problem at all. You don't need an entire copy of the Bitcoin blockchain to use Bitcoin. I think that's just ridiculous, basically, to think that. But their fear is that people won't be able to run an entire full node on their own computer, and that there will be fewer full nodes around the world. And if there's fewer full nodes around the world, it's easier for governments to control Bitcoin. But from my point of view, if we have more people around the world using Bitcoin, that means there'll be more businesses using Bitcoin, and there will be more full nodes around the world. So I think it's the absolute number of full nodes that count, not the percentage of people running full nodes. But the people on the other side of the argument seem to think that it's the percentage of full nodes, and they seem to be happier if there are 100 people in the entire world and 100 of them are running full nodes in a computer than a world where 1 billion people are using Bitcoin and there's 10,000 full nodes or something like that. But I think 10,000 full nodes or 100,000 full nodes would be just fine.
Now, do you think people that have committed frauds or scams or any sort of crimes with regards to ICOs should be punished by any government? I mean, we've seen many instances where they've just vanished.
Yeah, anybody that commits a crime with a victim should be punished. The question is, how do you catch them and do that? And I'm not even necessarily convinced that governments and traditional police are the right way to handle those sorts of things. But at the same time, don't go handing your money to strangers on the internet either. So buyer beware. What
do you suggest for people in terms of declaring gains to their respective IRS office with regards to cryptocurrencies? What is the best solution for people that you've seen?
I think the best answer there is people to look in their own heart and decide what's the best thing for them to do. But from a practical matter, if you don't pay the IRS or you don't pay the tax man, they'll hurt you. So my advice would be to pay them.
Obviously, and
not because you have any moral obligation to, but simply because it's the prudent thing to do. Just like if a mugger comes to you on the street with a gun or a knife and demands your wallet, you have no moral obligation to give it to them, but it's probably the smart thing to do.
Are there already offices that are cryptocurrency themed or are trying to be experts in cryptocurrencies that you're aware of?
Government offices? Is that what you're asking about? Or?
Private CPAs?
Yeah, I'm sure there's government offices, and I'm sure there's private CPAs that are looking and specializing, helping people with their cryptocurrency portfolios. And in fact, I think quite a few have actually started having people, helping people actually set up accounts and hold cryptocurrencies. So
now, would you describe Bitcoin currently as an investment opportunity or as a hedge against fiat currencies?
It's definitely both of those things, but if it winds up being a good hedge against fiat currencies, it's likely to also wind up being a fantastic investment at the same time for the same reason.
Now, okay, very interesting. Do you think that the involvement of governments and large multinational corporations in blockchain and in cryptocurrencies in general is going to be detrimental, given that we know their agendas? Or a step in the right direction toward better acceptance worldwide when you have the stamp of approval by governments and you don't fear that the governments will outlaw your exchanges in your country or come after you, etc.?
So I think those are two very different questions there. So you're asking about multinational corporations and about governments. So if you look at multinational corporations, we have things like, Toyota and Samsung and Apple that provide all sorts of wonderful products that people love to use and improve their lives. And if you look at governments around the world, they've been one of the most destructive forces in all of humankind, responsible for the deaths of, hundreds of millions of people, dropping of nuclear bombs on people, enslaving people around the world. So I'm not a fan of governments, but I think multinational corporations make the world a better place. And, businesses get rich by giving people things they want. Governments get rich and collect a bunch of money by threatening people with violence if they don't pay. So it's very clear which one of those two institutions are, more beneficial to humankind.
Roger, finally, what's next for you? What can we expect from Roger Ver?
The big thing that we announced about a week ago is our freesociety.com project, which is basically the idea is we have more than $100 million of private capital already committed, and we're going to approach different governments around the world and try and buy a chunk of land from them and set up the world's first free society based on the non-aggression principle and see what happens. So that's pretty exciting, and that's in the works. And we just announced that about a week ago. And people that are interested in that can go to freesociety.com for more information. Myself and another early Bitcoin and CryptoCoin adopter named Olivier Janssens.
Interesting. And that's freesociety.com?
Yep.
Very interesting. Roger Ver, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure having you on.
My pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.